Yes, to item 51. I believe a commissioner has some questions on this item. I think it's Jim Gilmetti.
Are we going to have a presentation or not?
Well, I can, staff can go ahead and give you an overview here real quick. Item 51 is an action item, and this is the final EIR for construction of a 1.3-mile paved bicycle and pedestrian trail adjacent to an existing rail line within the city of Santa Cruz. The city has adopted a mitigated negative declaration for this project and found that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment after mitigation. Staff recommends your approval.
I have questions.
Commissioner Gilmetti.
Rachel, you want to stand up there?
Yep.
I think it was in 1990 we approved Proposition 116, which basically was set aside by the voters to purchase rail lines so we could reintroduce rail service in various parts of the state. So I realized also that there was a combination of being able to do bicycle and pedestrian trails along with that rail acquisition. What I have before us is just a trail, and I'm really kind of curious is where's the rail element after all these years?
Sure, Commissioner Gilmetti. Rachel Morcone, Senior Planner with the Regional Transportation Commission in Santa Cruz, and I'm happy to provide an update on some of the activities that we've been doing around this great transportation corridor. So as a reminder, the Regional Transportation Commission, with the assistance of voter-approved Proposition 116 funds and State Transportation Improvement Program funds, purchased the Santa Cruz Branch Rail Line after about a decade of negotiations with Union Pacific in 2012. And since 2012, the Commission has been increasing freight service on the rail corridor through our short line operators. We have made a major structural replacement of one of the railroad bridges at La Selva Beach area. Our voters have approved Measure D back in 2016, which includes $50 million for rail infrastructure, railroad infrastructure. Since our purchase of the rail line in 2012, we have also increased excursion services on the rail corridor, with the exception of this past winter due to storm damage, which plagued the entire state. It also hit some sections of our rail corridor, so we were not able to operate those passenger services this past winter, though freight rail service has continued this entire time. Our commission's also done a rail transit feasibility study, which piggybacks off of our initial major transportation investment corridor study, which we had done in the late 1990s, that looked at all of our parallel corridors where the vast majority of our population lives. Our rail corridor, over half of our population lives within a mile of our rail corridor. We really do see it as an outstanding transportation asset, and our board continues to have the policy that we are building both a rail and trail within this corridor, and our board has not taken any actions to abandon that rail commitment. There are members of our community who are actively interested in seeing removal of the tracks for many reasons. Some of those might be categorized as not in my backyard reasons, but our board continues to move forward with making investments in the actual tracks to maintain rail service there, and we are, well, it's not imminent that we'll be able to provide rail transit service on the rail corridor. We are really excited about all the opportunities that both high-speed rail and extension of the Capitol Corridor from Silicon Valley down to Salinas through Pajaro, which is part of our rail corridor, will provide for encouraging expanded transit use on this corridor in the future.
Well, I noticed that you conducted a rail transit study in December of 2015, so that's 2.5 years ago.
Sure.
And the construction costs range from $23 million to $48 million. Are you just sitting on that study, or what's the status in 2.5 years?
Sure. As part of the Measure D sales tax measure negotiations with the community, there was community consensus that the community and our board would like to do a little additional environmental and economic analysis of different uses of the corridor before moving forward with rail transit service.
So what's the status of that study?
That study was completed in 2015. It looked at a range starting at about 20 different rail scenarios, looking at, what transit travel times would be, ridership numbers, ongoing operation and maintenance costs, upfront capital costs. The actual upfront capital costs for upgrading the entire rail line from Santa Cruz to Watsonville to a Class 1 would be upwards of $100 million, actually. And so our community is excited that through cap and trade and Senate Bill 1 and other federal programs, that there might be opportunities to partner with the state in the future to pursue making some of those upgrades. Our rail transit study also looked at some smaller capital investments that only went from Santa Cruz to Aptos, which currently it's 8 miles, and, at this time of day takes an hour to drive that 8 miles. And so there's definitely community recognition that we don't have enough room to widen the highway, and that this is the alternate route that we really need to make sure we preserve for transportation uses.
Well, I'm concerned that we live up to the intent of Prop 116. So, I would appreciate it maybe if you could update our staff on the freight movement, how much freight's being moved, how often, et cetera, through that corridor.
Sure. And bringing it back to the project that's before you, this project's ready to go to construction this summer. From the center line of the railroad tracks to the edge of the trail is 21 feet, which is well beyond what is required spacing between the tracks and the trail. And so this trail is being constructed, not on top of the spot that the tracks are, but definitely adjacent.
Rachel, I'm all for
Yeah.
the trail. That's not the issue, but the money
I
was
just want
also
to
supposed to
affirm
be
we're
spent.
not taking out the tracks. We are building a trail.
You better
adjacent to
not take out the tracks. And I know we have the same situation in Monterey, because we provided a great deal of money to buy right away for the tracks that lead into Monterey. So maybe Mara out there can give me an update sometime in the future.
Mike Zeller is from TMC. But, all
Thank
right.
you.
But staff will get some more information for you, Commissioner, on the future of that rail line.
So this is an action item, so we would need a,
Move
So-
approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gilmetti, a second by Commissioner Alvarado. Any further discussion? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining for the record? The motion carries. Okay.